that no democracy thrives by weakening its legislature. He argued that lawmakers do more than make laws. They also perform oversight and attend to extensive constituency needs. Adaramodu noted that parliamentarians often provide personal support to constituents and remain the most accessible arm of government. To help us make sense of this, we're joined by a legal practitioner, Toho Seruwaja. Thank you so much, Toho, for joining us on the news.
You are welcome, Lekon.
So is it true that Nigeria's democracy will suffer if its legislature becomes part-time?
Yes, I agree with the Senate spokesman, Senator Yemi. I totally agree, because if you look at it and if you look at the language of our constitution, the legislative arm is the beacon of democracy. As a matter of fact, if you look at the way the Nigeria system is structured in a way whereby we have the equality representation across the state, then we have the representation by the House of Rep based on population. So this is a means where the people are represented. And if we make it a part-time schedule or as canvassed, I believe is a misconception, and it's as a result of the lack of awareness of the duties and responsibility of the legislative arm of government in Nigeria based on their outputs now.
What is the lack of awareness that you refer to?
Well, the lack of awareness begins when you see statesmen, when you see political players canvass or call for order, like the confab, calling for youth representation, calling from youth conference, calling for sectional conference and all those stuff, regional conference, for them to discuss and for them to discuss the way forward for Nigeria. The Constitution has made it clear. If you look at Section 4, and if you look at the Section 4 of the Constitution, it spells out the clear responsibility of the legislative arm of government. And if only we have an effective legislative arm of government, those calls wouldn't have been made. Those calls wouldn't have been made. And those calls are not necessary, because we have a legislative arm of government looking at the reason canvassed by the Senate spokesman. You discover that it's a shame that he restricted the functions of the legislative arm of government to giving aid to people. That is really a shame. And that another thing again puts the legislative arm of government in the heart of the people to be a arm of government that is not functional.
So how come democracy will not be on recess when the lawmakers go on recess? Because some people feel that it could be cost efficient if the legislature is on part-time. It would not stop them from still carrying out their legislative duties.
Well, Lekon, first of all, you look at the topography of Nigeria. You should look at the topography of Nigeria. Nigeria is a country made of diverse ethnic cultural group, and also with a touch of religion becoming the center of unification. So if you look at it from the perspective of the legislative arm going on recess, putting democracy to a stop, I think that is a wrong perception. Is a total wrong perception. Outside the recess, even the executive arm of government, they go, their recess is like their annual leave. Let me use the word, an holiday, which the executive are also entitled to. But let's look at it from the perspective. Look at the functions or the duties of the National Assembly. One is to make laws for the peace, order, and good governance in Nigeria. There is also look at the issue of control of public fund. If you look at it, without the National Assembly, you will see that the budget or every activities of the executive cannot scale through. And you also look at the function of approving appointments. These are issues that are basically that can be run daily basis. The only thing I will canvass for, or the only thing I think the misconception we have in the public domain, is that the bicameral system of legislature in Nigeria have not been fully up to their responsibility. Yeah, in Nigeria as a country, the legislative arm of government cannot be put on part-time if we only have a legislative